Hello friends, for those who are new here, I'm Tania Rose Jacob. When we are considering the members of Neisseria, two species are pathogenic to man. Neisseria meningitidis and Neisseria gonorrhoeae. In this video, I want to talk about the Neisseria meningitidis, which is also known as N. meningitidis or meningococcus. This bacteria have thin peptidoglycan layer, so it will take the pink color on gram staining and it's gram negative. Catalase and oxidase test positive. Non-motile, non-sporing and obligate aerobe. That is, they absolutely need oxygen to grow. They are round bacteria arranged in pairs, so diplococci with flattened adjacent sides. So these bacteria have lens-shaped or half-moon-shaped arrangement. These are capsulated bacteria and commensals in nasopharynx of healthy adolescents. They won't cause any manifestations, but the problems arise in people with weakened immune system like HIV infection, diabetes, malignancy, alcohol abuse, elderly people and in infants and in people who has undergone splenectomy. That is the surgical procedure to remove the spleen. Because we know spleen is the important organ for immunity against the encapsulated bacteria, and persons having sickle cell anemia and functional asplenia are also susceptible for the infection caused by this bacteria. Asplenia means the absence of normal spleen function. Sickle cell can damage our spleen, which in turn can cause functional asplenia. For the persons with above mentioned conditions are prone to the manifestations by this bacteria like meningitis, sepsis and disseminated intravascular coagulation. We will discuss in detail about this in clinical manifestation part. Now let's move on to the virulence factors. The meningococcus is encapsulated and covered by polysaccharide layer called capsule. So capsular polysaccharide is the primary virulence factor which protect the bacteria from complement mediated phagocytosis by the host. The capsule has pili, the hair-like extension by which the bacteria attach to the host cell. Now just below the capsule, outer membrane is present, having two types of outer membrane proteins, opacity and porine proteins. Opacity protein and porine protein. The porine protein are embedded in outer membrane and it is of two types, pore A and pore B. Opacity factor is of two types, OPA and OPC, and this opacity factor also help in attach to the host cell. The third virulence factor is IgA protease, which is a toxic protein the bacteria uses to destroy the IgA. IgA is an immune system protein found in nasopharyngeal mucosal secretions which opsonizes the invading bacteria. Means it attaches them and neutrophils recognize and destroy them. So IgA neutralizes the first line of mucosal defense. However, not all IgA molecules get neutralized. Within the neutrophil, some meningococcus wrapped in a phagosome, which is like a bubble, inside which the reactive oxygen species like hydrogen peroxide are released to kill it. But the meningococcus are catalase positive. So it can release the catalase enzyme which break down this hydrogen peroxide. So we were not able to kill the bacteria, right? So what will happen is the bacteria utilizes the neutrophil resources to multiply and increase in number, and it bursts open, which in turn releases the meningococcus into the blood and causes the meningococcemia, that is the presence of bacteria, the meningococcus in blood. Inside the bloodstream, the meningococcus uses the another toxin called factor H binding protein which disables the factor H. The factor H is nothing but a protein involved in the alternate complement pathway which helps with the antibacterial immunity. Once the bacteria enter into the bloodstream, it can release toxins and destroy capillary endothelial cells, resulting in leaky capillaries. The another virulence factor is lipo-oligosaccharide, which is a cell wall antigen which trigger the widespread immune reaction and cause the endothelial injury. Endothelial injury result in many clinical features like increased vascular permeability, What happened when the vascular permeability increases? Of course, the fluid loss will be there, resulting in shock. And the second clinical feature due to this endothelial injury is intravascular thrombosis, due to the activation of procoagulants leading to disseminated intravascular coagulation. And the third clinical feature due to the endothelial injury is myocardial dysfunction. Because of endothelial injury and release of procoagulants, severe bleeding occurs throughout the body. If the blood pooled in adrenal gland, the local pressure increases and there make the adrenal blood vessel pinch shut, leading to ischemia, necrosis of various hormone releasing cells in adrenal gland, and this condition is known as Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome, means the insufficient release of hormones aldosterone and cortisol, which can further worsen the shock. Another virulence factor is transferrin binding protein, which help in the uptake of iron from the transferrin. Next, let's move on to the epidemiology. The disease caused by the Neisseria can be an epidemic disease due to the serogroup A and W135. The epidemic means a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community at a particular time. And in schools and in military camps, the infection by this bacteria can be an outbreak because of serogroup C. Outbreak means a sudden occurrence of something unwelcome such as a disease. Or it can be even hyperendemic disease due to the serogroup B, which is very rare case. The hyperendemic refers to the persistent high level of disease occurrence. It can be a sporadic cases due to all important serotypes like A, C, B, Y, etc. Sporadic means occurring at irregular intervals or only in a few places, scattering or isolated. The infection by this bacteria is common in age group from 3 months to 5 years. The risk factor that promote the colonization include the overcrowding and semi-closed communities like school, military and refugee camps. And the travelers who is traveling to the regions which is high incidence of meningococcal infection. Smoking. Lastly, the viral and mycoplasma infections of respiratory tract. Just now we discussed the risk factor that promote the colonization. Next, let's see the risk factor that promote disease. These include for those who are deficient for complement components like C5 to C9, hypergammaglobulinemia. It is the condition in which the level of immunoglobulin in the body is low and the risk of infection is high. Hyposplenism. It means the reduced splenic functioning but not as severely affected as with splenism. Next, let's move on to the pathogenesis. Humans are the only natural host for meningococcal infections. Most common source of infection is nasopharyngeal carriers who are having weakened immunity. Mode of transmission is by droplet inhalation. Spread of infection is, we know mainly this bacteria cause meningitis. How it spread from nasopharynx to meninges? It's by the first route is hematogenous route, that is through blood, which causes septicemia. Septicemia means the blood poisoning by bacteria or their toxins. Second way is by olfactory nerve from the nasopharynx to the cribriform plate, or rarely it can spread through conjunctiva. Next, let's move on to the clinical manifestations. First one is rashes. You can see right over here, which is non-blanching petechial or purpuric rashes. The second one is septicemia, that is due to the endotoxin induced endothelial injury. There is increased vascular permeability and intravascular thrombosis, which resulted in blood poisoning by the bacteria or bacterial toxins. The third one is Waterhouse-Friderichsen syndrome. We already discussed about this. It's nothing but the insufficient aldosterone and cortisol release due to the necrosis of various hormone releasing cells in the adrenal gland. It's a syndrome, right? Meaning a group of symptoms will occur together. So this syndrome is associated with large purpuric rashes, which is also known as purpura fulminans, shock and disseminated intravascular coagulation, bilateral adrenal hemorrhage and multi-organ failure. The fourth manifestation is meningitis, which is the most common result of meningococcemia. Meningococcus is the only bacteria to cause meningitis epidemically. How it happens is when bacteria move through blood, it gets into brain by weakening the endothelial cells and it crosses the blood-brain barrier. This way, it gets into CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, and cause the meningitis. The meningitis is typically present with fever, vomiting, headache, and neck stiffness. The fifth manifestation is chronic meningococcemia, occur very rarely and characterized by repeated episodes of petechial rashes, fever, arthritis, and splenomegaly. The sixth clinical manifestation is post-meningococcal reactive diseases. It's nothing but because of severe meningococcal disease, there is an incidence of immune complex associated complications which occur after 4 to 10 days after the systemic disease. It presents clinically as arthritis, iritis, rashes, pericarditis, polyserositis, and secondary fever. The polyserositis is nothing but it is a chronic inflammation of several serous membranes with effusions in serous cavities, resulting in fibrous thickening of serous membranes and sometimes constrictive pericarditis. This illness is also called Concato's disease. Now let's move on to the laboratory diagnosis. For laboratory diagnosis, we should collect the specimen, right? First, let's consider the active cases. Here we can collect the cerebrospinal fluid because it causes meningitis. This bacteria can cause meningitis. We can collect blood because of this septicemia. And you collect skin scarping from petechial rashes. In case of carriers, you can collect nasopharyngeal swab because these are the normal commensals of nasopharynx. Now we collected the specimen. Next, in sterile conditions, we should transport the specimen without any delay. It is the diagram showing how the bacteria will appear microscopically on gram staining. We already discussed this gram-negative bacteria. And the one thing you should remember here if you are taking cerebrospinal fluid as a specimen by lumbar puncture is the cerebrospinal fluid should be processed immediately and don't refrigerate because the meningococcus and Haemophilus influenza may die. If you are taking nasopharyngeal swab, pus or skin scarpings as specimen, you should be carried it in a transport media called stored medium. Remember the name stored medium and it should inoculated into selective medium such as Theo Martin medium or New York City medium to suppress the growth of normal flora. Remember the term Theo Martin medium or New York City medium. In patients with meningitis, the CSF fluid often has a low glucose or sugar level and increased WBC count and increased protein content. When you are doing the lumbar puncture for collecting the cerebrospinal fluid, if there is an increased intracranial pressure or if the skin surrounding the area is infected, you should not do this because the infection can go into along with the needle while lumbar puncturing. How we will differentiate meningococcus from other commensal Neisseria species? The meningococcus are catalase and oxidase positive and they ferment glucose and maltose but not sucrose. This test related to the fermentation can be performed using rapid carbohydrate utilization test RCUT, rapid carbohydrate utilization test. Serogrouping is done by slide agglutination test by using appropriate antisera. Next, serology. We know serology is the term refers to the diagnostic identification of antibodies in the serum. So, the antibody produced by our body against the capsular antigen of bacteria can be detected by ELISA. Serology by using ELISA. The purpose of doing this is it helps in retrospective diagnosis of the disease as the antibody develop later in the convalescence sera because the antibodies are developed later in the convalescent sera. Second use is to know the response of vaccination. And finally, it will help in the diagnosis of chronic meningococcemia. The molecular diagnosis is done using multiplex PCR for the simultaneous detection of common agents of pyrogenic meningitis. Why we are using PCR for molecular diagnosis? It has some advantages. The first one, PCR is highly selective and it will detect even few bacteria in cerebrospinal fluid and it detect earlier than the conventional culture, and PCR help in serogroup identification also. How we will treat? Drug of choice for the meningococcal infection is third generation cephalosporins like ceftriaxone or cefotaxime, which is given for 7 days. Penicillin also we can give, but penicillin is less sensitive to the meningococcal infection. So the drug of choice is cephalosporins. Symptomatic treatment include the aggressive fluid resuscitation, also known as fluid replacement, in case of shock. Symptomatic treatment include the measures to decrease the intracranial pressure. How we will prevent the meningococcal infection? Mainly by two methods, chemoprophylaxis and vaccine prophylaxis. Rifampicin and ciprofloxacin are recommended drug for chemoprophylaxis against the meningococcal infection. The second method of prevention is vaccine prophylaxis. Meningococcal polysaccharide vaccines are currently formulated as either bivalent or quadrivalent. Bivalent for serogroups A and C and quadrivalent for serogroup A, C, Y and W135. The meningococcal polysaccharide vaccine has protective efficacy rate of more than 95% and duration of protection by this vaccine lasts for 3 to 5 days. No vaccine is available for serogroup B because of two reasons. First one, capsule of antigroup B is less immunogenic, and secondly it is encephalogenic due to the expression of similar cross-reactive antigens on the neuronal cells. This vaccine is not given for children below 3 years of age. Why? Because similar to the pneumococcal vaccine, meningococcal capsular vaccine is also an example of T-cell independent antigen and poorly immunogenic to children. Then how we will vaccinate children below 3 years of age? So here we have meningococcal conjugate vaccine which can be given to younger children. In conjugate vaccine we are adding an protein carrier as adjuvant, which increases the immunogenicity of the capsular vaccine. Meningococcal recombinant vaccine is given to adult. Outer membrane vesicle based vaccines can be used to reduce the incidence of group B diseases. It's all about today's video. If you like my video, please don't forget to subscribe my channel, and if you have any doubt, comment in the comment box. Thank you for watching.